guns. They've stopped. Stabilize your rear deflectors.
Alright, promised I'd have some progress, and I have some progress. So I'm working on this front fuselage, and I was trying to figure out how I'm going to light the cockpit because it's built into the entire fuselage section. You can't just drop it in. It's not like a cockpit, what do they call it, bucket or something. But I'm not a big fan of this, but what I ended up doing was boring out a hole where the neck piece is going to join up to the front fuselage, and I made sure I patterned it so I didn't make the hole too big, and I made it about an inch square, but it's, I don't know if you can see but how thick that resin is, but in this wall this is an inch thick, so I had to drill a bunch of holes, and then I took a Dremel and I went through with a bit and just went to town in there, and I got rid of a lot of that resin. I did it all outdoors because there was a lot of dust. So I guess I can only build Y-wings in the summertime when the weather's nice, because if I did that inside it would have been snow and resin. I think the hole's big enough. I could probably go a little bit bigger, but it seems to be okay. I was surprised because I actually drilled some holes into the cockpit dash and side panels, and I ran some fiber just to see if I could get to it, and I could. So if I feed it in there, I can use a flashlight and kind of fish it out with a pair of long tweezers, or whatever you have around, if you can see it in there. Kind of a pain in the neck, but I was going to drill a bunch of holes and then put a really bright LED in here and see if I could see the gauges. The problem with that is this resin is too thick. So if I drilled through here and just left the hole there for the light to try and come out of, you're not gonna be able to see it. And if you do see it, it's gonna disappear when you look around the model. It's gonna be really sporadic lighting, and I didn't want that. So what I did here was I drilled a hole for, this is 1 millimeter fiber, and this is 0.75 millimeter, and I also have 0.5 millimeter. So you're going to get varying size gauges, which is what I'm going for. From what I can tell from the inside of the Y-wing, there isn't a lot of stuff lit up, but it looks like there's panels on the right and left hand side that are red lights. So I'm going to actually drill out more stuff, and I'll show you how I do that, because I need to drill some more holes. Anyway, so I figured I might as well show this just in case somebody's interested and is using a pin vise and has to get through a ½ inch of resin. It's not going to be fun for you. So this is a tool that I had I bought at Harbor Freight. It's about 10 bucks, and you get a set, so you get like 50 pieces. You get the drill bit, the drill, the bits, and it's powered by a cord, which I like because it's I don't have to worry about charging it, and it's super light. So it's not like a Dremel where I have all kinds of Dremels and they're all heavy compared to this. So I have a really small chuck on here that accepts bits down to, I think, 0.3 millimeter. I have a 0.55 millimeter bit in here. So if I'm drilling a hole for fiber and the fiber is 0.5, I'm going to go about 5, I don't even know what that is, hundredths higher. So the hole's big enough. If I drilled a 0.50 size hole, the fiber wouldn't fit in there. So these are 0.55 millimeter drill bits that I use for 0.50 size fiber optic. And you can buy these on, I don't know if they still have them or not. I know I got these on Amazon. I honestly don't know if they're still available. They're hard to find. And for some reason they're all really short chucks on them, so you can't get longer ones. So I'm going to use this thing. It's running at 9 volts right now. It's a 12 volt tool if you just plug it in, but I have it hooked up to a variable voltage DC adapter. Because at 12 volts it spins too fast and I don't have control over the drill bit. So you're not going to be able to see this, but I actually have a hole marked, and I'm just going to kind of drill into this till I feel it come through the other side. There. So now I have a hole. Probably have to use some compressed air to blow the resin out of there. But the good thing about resin is it doesn't melt. So when you drill into it with one of these small bits, it doesn't melt to the bit like styrene does. So you can drill all the holes you want and not have to worry about cleaning off the bit because it's got plastic on it, or you have to slow it down really slow so it doesn't melt the plastic as much. So I'm drilling another hole. Nice and slow. I'm just kind of working it into there, so it went through. Okay, so now I got 2 holes in the side of the dash. These are for the 0.50 millimeter fiber. So I'm going to run that stuff in there, and then I'm going to fish it from this side, and then I'm going to figure out what else I need to drill here. I'm not going to go crazy. I already have 5 lights, so 2 will be 7. I might do maybe 15 total, maybe 20, that will light up the cockpit enough that I think it's not overdone. And what I might do is take a couple of them and hook a couple of these up to like a flashing LED, so some of the cockpit lights blink. So we'll get to that after I finish running the fiber and I'm satisfied with the amount of lighting in there, and I can test it. So I'll hook up this fiber to a LED, and then I'll look at it and see if there's enough lighting in there, and if not, I'll add more. There's a lot of different gauges I could drill into here, so I want to kind of spread them out and not go overboard. So I'll see how it goes. So I'll come back when I have some more of this done. So here's our fully lit cockpit, and you can see some blinking lights in there. I got a couple of LEDs hooked up to some fiber that's blinking. Those are 3mm white flashing and 3mm red flashing LEDs, and I hooked up a couple of fiber optics to each one. I didn't want the whole thing blinking. I didn't want it going nuts like a Christmas tree situation, so there's a couple of like warning lights going on. Hopefully it's not too distracting. The rest of the lights are on permanently, and they're all cool white right now, and I'll go in there later with some clear paint and color them, so you'll have some color variation and stuff. So I was able to get the fiber into the it's really dark. I was able to get the fiber into the primary hull, or I guess you would call forward fuselage, and kind of bend it around and get it to come out back. Was not easy to do. It kept breaking. I actually let it sit overnight, and when I looked at it the next day, there were a couple of fiber strands that were broken. So I'm going to let this sit, make sure everything is okay, and then I'll glue on the neck piece. And I don't know if you can see, there's a support. Let me hit the lights and I'll show you the support that I put on it. So the neck piece is attached. It's not attached yet, but there's a metal support. I don't want to pull this out too much because it's hooked up to the fiber. There's a metal rod in there that's actually epoxied to the front fuselage section, and this piece is drilled out so it will fit over, and I could epoxy this so I have a nice tight bond there with the epoxy and then additional support with the rod, just to give it some extra support just in case. And then I have another hole drilled down the back, which wires are coming out of here, and this will go into the next piece, which is the rear fuselage section, and I have to hook up another LED so I can run fiber to my R2 unit that goes in here. And then I guess after that, I think the lighting for this whole forward section is done, and then I just have to run some wires to go to the engines. So it's looking good so far. So this is the little R2 unit that you get with the kit. He's pretty small, and he's resin, so he's gonna have some problems. Maybe you're lucky and you got one that's cast perfectly, but this guy has a couple of little bubbles on top of his head. There's a section here that is bubbles, and it's kind of missing, and I think that's pretty much it. I think he's otherwise in pretty good shape. And then back here is should probably fix that too. And what I did, if you notice on the bottom, I marked off where I'm going to kind of route out that area with a Dremel, so I can drill into this part here. I can just drill a hole and it'll be kind of hollow in here, so I could run the fiber instead of having to drill this way down through the bottom. I can kind of drill into the side, so I'm gonna have to hollow him out. And I have some holes that I had kind of pre-sunk with one of these punches, and I went in there and I just set the hole so I can use a pin vise or whatever I need to do to make the holes. I'm only going to put lights in the front here, and I'm going to put 2 lights here and in the back right here. So he'll have 4 lights on him. I'm not really sure if I'm going to make one blinking. I might. So in order to fix this, what I'm going to use is this stuff, which is, it's called Mr. Dissolved Putty, and it's only available from Japan. You can get it on Amazon or whatever, and one like jar of this stuff goes a long way, because you only need a little bit, and as long as you take care of it, you can make it last for a very long time. So it's worth the I don't know, whatever, $10 or whatever it costs. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this stuff on a paintbrush, and I'm going to put it over the bubbles. You want to go on pretty heavy with this stuff, and then you can sand it, and it will sink into areas. You may have to do a couple of coats, but it will solve a lot of problems. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll go over it real lightly with some sanding paper, maybe a sanding sponge, just to get a little bit of the smooth finish off, and make it look all nice and neat. So I'll wait for him to dry, and I might work on him when I need a break from the other work that I'm doing.
Gold 5 to Red Leader.
Lost Tyree, lost touch.
I copy, Gold Leader.
It came from behind.